So what's going on guys, Kades here and welcome back to a brand new video. For today I will show you top 10 mistakes that you should avoid doing in Sons of the Forest. So then moving over to number 1, and as this is a survival game, almost every single new player as soon as they start the game will go exploring or create their first base, but I would recommend to hold down to that. So for example, my first thought of when I spawn is to first of all find the crash site and loot every single item that I can find, and a lot of times this can result in getting lucky RNG jobs and finding a good weapon or just useful leftover food. Then second of all, when you're done looting, you need to look around and see exactly where you got your spawn. So sometimes the crash site will appear in the forest, while other times it will be close to the beach and etc. No matter what spawn you got, you need to look around and try to use your position strengths to your advantage. So for example, if you're close to a beach, then find every single turtle and collect their items by killing them. Then if you're close to the forest, then try to look for berries and other food resources. And then lastly, if you're close to a high ground like a mountain or a small cliff, then already start thinking about building your first small base. The strength about mountains is that they will basically act as a natural defense. So if there is a small mountain, then you can build a starter base against it, and this will give you extra protection, and you will only need to build 3 walls instead of 4, because the mountain will act as a natural wall. So in a quick summary, the biggest mistake that new players make is no matter what spawn they get, they will right away do the same thing as per usual. But instead I encourage you to play to your strengths, and perhaps in your playthrough you have got a super lucky spawn, and this may help you to survive and defend yourself a lot easier. So then let's move over to the second mistake, and this time I would recommend for most players not to go into caves and cannibal camps in your first few days. So cannibals usually live in caves or forest camps, and they will have a lot of resources and valuable things that you may find. But what I usually do instead when I play Sons of the Forest at the start is to go exploring few meters from the crash site, and I look for these caves and camps in case of finding an empty camp or small cave that still has a lot of valuable items, but I only enter them if they're not guarded by enemies. So a mistake that I see most players making is that they right away go exploring this cool island, and in result they come across a cave or a camp and they just go straight into them and get themselves killed. The thing with camps and caves is that a lot of times they will be guarded, so usually the safest bet is to remember their location and then come back few days later when you have better equipment and when you have found a safe place for a base. Because if you go into these camps or caves right away when you're naked, then you might get in trouble, because first of all these caves are dark, so without some type of light source you won't be able to see, and then second of all you may run into different types of cannibals, and if you aggro them then they for sure will come at some point to your base and destroy it. So this does not mean that you should not go exploring, but all I'm saying is to be careful, and if you find a cave or a base without any creatures, then for sure go into it and loot everything that you can find. But then on the other hand, if you find a camp or a cave, and if some type of enemy is guarding it, then don't go into it, but instead mark down the location and come back to it when you have better gear. So then let's go over to the mistake number 3, and this is a mistake that I made in my first playthrough as well, and it is that I crafted and used the wrong starting weapons. So I strongly recommend for every single player to craft as soon as you can a spear and a bow. A spear and a bow are super easy to make, and they usually just require the most basic materials that any player can find in just a minute or two. And the best thing about this weapon combination is that you can use the bow 24/7 on the range, and then if the enemy gets way too close to you, then switch to the spear and finish him off. And then on top of all of this, these weapons can be upgraded, so they are great for starting and mid-game content. Then as well, not only they will help stagger enemies and keep them at bay, but they are good for hunting, and the throwing damage for a spear is insanely good as well. So if you're early game or late game, it doesn't matter. Make sure to keep a spear or 2 on you. And here's a bonus mistake as well, and it is that when players craft a spear, they think that that's it, my weapon is done, and now I just need to do other things. But no, when you make your weapons, you can actually upgrade them. Not all weapons can be upgraded though, but many of them can, and all you need to do is add a teeth or 2, or you can even add feathers or other materials as well. And doing this will allow you to either way do more damage or to swing faster, or to either perform a better block and much more. So then let's go over to the next mistake, and it is that most players loot the crash site just once and then they forget about it. So inside the crash site there is medicine, then even food that you can eat, then sometimes you can find different beverages, that you can either way have for health reasons, or you can just make a Molotov cocktail out of them and much more. So in the crash site there's plenty of useful things. So if you're running low on your basic items, then come back to this place and loot everything again. So then as for the mistake number 5, and it is that we are not making enough pouches/bags. So you can use different skins from different animals to make different pouches in the game, where you can carry more resources, more sticks, more spears, then even more berries or water and much more. So make sure that you're hunting all the animals that you come across. Slingshots or the previous bow and spear are great for this. And make sure that you collect all of those skins, and at least make sure to upgrade the spear bag and a stick bag, or even a rock bag for when you're building a stone wall for your defense and much more. So then for the mistake number 6, and it is that blueberries and water are great for source of food. You will need to walk up to the bush and make sure that they are blueberries, not red or white or other berries, but only blueberries. They are great, and when you eat them, if you destroy the plant, you can actually get the seeds from them as well. I highly recommend it. Blueberries and water are very easy and cheap food to find. So this is a great little survival tip, especially if you're pretty new at the game, and if you don't want to do all the hunting and fishing right away, or if you just need extra food source, then invest your time in blueberries. So then as for the mistake number 7, and it is to avoid eating all the berries besides the blueberries like I previously mentioned. So all the other berries will cause you to lose health and make you sick. And unlike in other games, they won't benefit you at all. If you eat a berry and then you hear a weird crunch sound, and then all of a sudden your character goes weird, or just makes a gross noise in general, that means that you ate the wrong berry. So be careful and don't forget to only eat blueberries. So then let's go over to the next mistake, and it is that most players think that the only way to defend yourself is by killing cannibals, and basically anything and everything that walks. But actually, if you find yourself wanting cannibals to leave you alone, then other than killing them, which just makes them more angrier, you can actually put on some red paint or create a mask, which you can find in some main cannibal villages or in the bunker. So you can put on the red paint or a mask, and it will actually cause the cannibals to ignore you, or worship you, or even bow down, or keep their distance. Now a word of caution, this will wash off if you walk through water, or anything like that. So just keep this in mind. And actually one of the best defenses you can have around cannibals attacking you is to not attack them back. So if players can stay out of their line of sight, stay out of their way and not attack them, then they might leave you alone for some time, but of course not forever. The more you will attack, the more you will be attacked, and doing less attacking will give you less enemies as well. So just keep that in mind before you get bloodthirsty. And then speaking of water and enemies, mistake number 9 is that most players don't know that cannibals or other creatures cannot swim. So if you find a deep enough water that the enemies can't move into, then they will either way not move into it or come after you, or they will just drown. So building in or around by water is always a good choice for a base, or if you ever find yourself in trouble, then jumping in the water may save your life. So then moving over to one of the last mistakes, and as I just explained that you don't need to go all Viking style, but if you really want to, then don't let their sacrifice go to waste, because you can burn down your enemy bodies into bones. This is very important, because you can use those bones to make some very sturdy armor when combining X amount of bones with some cloth. So don't neglect this by wasting free materials on the ground. If you are going to be fighting that much anyways, make sure you burn down the bodies to get bones and then make armor. And a bonus tip on this one is to make sure that you build yourself some bone baskets by the fire you're burning, because then you can contain all those bones. And then if you start running out of the pieces of armor that get knocked off, then you will have reserves to build back upon the armor, especially if you have made a good bone farm and much more. Okay, so then let's go over to the last bonus mistake, and it is that most players don't make traps, or they make too few of them. So if you're going to be fighting a lot of enemies, and if you want to make your own little bone farm, then make sure that you line your base with traps and defenses. Most of the traps, especially like the Deathfall trap, are going to be very useful. A lot of the cannibals will be attacking your base 24/7, so if you want free resources, then just place down a bunch of traps, and then you will get easy dead bodies, which then you can burn and get even more free bones. These traps will make an easier way for you to defend yourself, and the traps can as well work as an alarm that will warn you each time there is an enemy lurking close to your defenses. Sometimes they will be even coming when you're not around and trigger your traps, so don't forget to make your traps as many as you can, and that's about it. So with that said, I really do appreciate everyone for watching guys, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any suggestions, feedback, or other good Sons of the Forest beginner guides that you would like to see in the next video, then feel free to leave your comments in the comment section down below. And while you're doing that, please click like, subscribe, and enable that notification bell, so this way you could support the channel and you won't miss any more amazing content from me. With all this said, you have an amazing day and I will see you in my next video. So take it easy, peace.